Welcome to Political Playlist.
All right, are we ready, guys?
Happy Hour.
Happy hour.
We fucked that up so bad.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to Political Playlist Happy Hour. I'm Michael Kristoff,
I'm Anna Muskie-Goldwyn.
and we are foregoing the cold open today, playlisters.
Michael insisted because he didn't want to do
so
more
much
work.
primary stuff going on.
And it's
There's
that,
so
for
much
sure.
primary stuff. We are talking with a candidate running in our home state. And speaking of our home state, Anna, have you voted in the LA mayor primary and the governor primary?
And all the other primaries.
I haven't done my ballot yet.
No, I have not yet because I actually was
Okay.
waiting because I wanted to do my ballot with Billy this weekend, and he's been working so much, so we
So,
haven't had the opportunity.
Question, does doing your ballot with Billy mean you force him to bubble in certain things?
No, what
How
it
does that
means is
work
that
in your
Billy.
household?
It means that Billy's been working 15-hour days, and the election
Yeah.
is like the last thing on his mind. And
Yeah.
so, I never tell him who to vote for, but basically, I'll be like, "Hey, I'm gonna do my ballot. Why don't you sit down and do your ballot so that he remembers to do it?"
Yeah.
And then he'll inevitably like ask questions about the people, and I give my honest opinion.
You know, what would be a funny like bit in a rom-com is like if you know
Filling
you
out
were like
ballots together?
but you each did it, and then he was like, "Oh, yep, I did mine," and then like he's like, "I sent it in," and then like months later, you're like cleaning out a cabinet,
And you
and
find
there's
it.
his ballot that he like never, and it's like the scene in like it's like the Act 2 scene where the
What
like,
is,
couple
but what are,
fights.
you're like, "Oh, he's not politically engaged." Like
Well,
he
no,
said
but
he
it's
was.
like, no, but it's like, you said you voted and you didn't. And he's like, I just told you what you wanted to
I
hear.
think
And
that's a
it's like
rom-com that
whole
only
thing.
appeals to like us.
No, but it's the thing. It's like the guy who lied
Yes.
about doing the thing.
Right. It's a yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And obviously men famously don't lie about doing the thing. So
About doing anything,
yeah.
actually.
Yeah,
Speaking
no,
of
we're so
lying,
good at it.
there's a new nominee in Texas for Senate.
There is. Yeah, I was saying before we jumped on this record that I was surprised at how much Paxton beat Cornyn by.
Mhm.
But you're not so surprised.
I mean, I guess I'm surprised as the margin was so big. It was like 28 points, but I also just feel like, to my point about Billy working really hard at this job right now, like for most people, voting in the primary election like isn't the first thing on their mind. And I was hearing something today that, it was like only 1.5 million people voted in the Texas primary, which compared
Wow.
to the entire population of Texas, I don't know off the top of my head, but that's not a lot of people, right? So I
That's
think
like
that
nothing.
yeah, but that's how primary elections are, like it's really low voter turnout, and it tends to be voter turnout of people who are on the more extreme. And
Gang,
this is why
the population of Texas is 31.29 million
there you go.
people.
There
And
you
you're
go.
telling me 1.5 million voted and
Let me
28
fact check
and a half
myself.
didn't? Like, what? No, I think you're right. I mean, it's the primary.
Yeah, that's
Like,
that's what it is.
Insane.
But what I was saying is that like the people, there's two things. One, the people who tend to vote in primaries tend to be more engaged and therefore more extreme in their views. And Paxton was
Right.
obviously the more extreme candidate, which I just think is generally hilarious because John Cornyn is like incredibly conservative. He just voted for a bipartisan gun bill after the Uvalde shooting, which like I don't understand how people can be mad
And
about
if
that.
you're a conservative and a Republican, like Cornyn is your guy. He
Yeah.
is so classically
But then I think
conservative and
so.
very
I think
conservative.
there's already the thing where you're going to have the more extreme voters voting in the primary, so therefore Paxton has a leg up on that. And then I think you have people who, like I was just saying about Billy, who have other things on their brain and they're not necessarily paying attention until the 11th hour of
Right.
like how they want to vote, but they know that it's an
Mm.
important thing to vote in. And most likely they're Trump supporters. And so then they're like, well, I'm just going to vote for the guy that Trump said to vote for. Like that's why endorsements matter, And so I guess the margin is surprising to me, but his win and a solid win is actually not. But I know everyone's like, oh, it's good for Democrats. Like, we'll see. I mean, it's kind of like
Yeah.
Texas is pretty red. Like, I feel like there's not a lot
Yeah.
of like independents in Texas. I think you have a lot of moderate Republicans. I did
Yeah.
see that Tallarico put up a post that was basically like, thank you, John
Welcoming the
Cornyn, for your
Cornyn.
service. And
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
we
yeah. That was
welcome like
good.
Cornyn supporters into our campaign. I was like, all right, he's giving it a try. We'll see.
Well, let me tell you, Anna, somebody that Donald Trump has not endorsed, and
Mm,
that is congressional candidate Eric Jones, who we're going to
true.
be speaking with in a moment. Eric is running for California's 4th congressional district. And what should we know about Eric ahead of our conversation with him?
Well, we should know that this district is one that I personally am very fond of because it
Oh,
includes parts of Napa Valley, Sonoma Valley. So
oh,
we're talking a lot of wine country.
oh my
Also,
God,
parts
that's
of,
amazing.
I didn't even know this was a county in California, Yolo County. Did you know that?
No, but I'm assuming
Yolo.
they make wine and have a great time.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And then also part of Sacramento County. So essentially a bunch of Northern California counties. And so Eric Jones is challenging longtime Democratic incumbent Mike Johnson. Guess how many
Mm.
terms he's been there for? This
Oh
should be our new
God, a
game.
baker's dozen. Yeah.
Actually, you're
A
really
baker's
close.
dozen, which is
You're
13.
really close. 14 terms.
Oh my God.
Um,
Wait,
and
that's also so long. Yeah.
so yeah, that's what's 14 times 2? I'm bad at math. 28.
24.
So he's been there for
28.
28.
So I said 24, 28. Yeah. Yeah.
So he's been there for 28 years.
Okay.
And so Jones is a former venture capitalist, an entrepreneur, but he is also a nonprofit founder. And we talked to him about this nonprofit that he founded called the American Dream Institute, which is a nonprofit focused on combating political extremism and rebuilding trust in democratic institutions. And we get into sort of the whole philosophy behind this organization with him in our conversation. And like a lot of Democrats right now, specifically like a lot of these challengers, his campaign message very centered around affordability, very centered around anti-corruption, talking a lot about housing, which is a huge issue in California as it is everywhere. And we really do get into a pretty big conversation with him about healthcare, which he feels very passionately about. And, you know, there is this other through line of most of the people that we've been talking to, they're rejecting corporate PAC money. And Eric is as well. He supports banning congressional stock trading, and he's an advocate for term limits and campaign finance reform. So I think he's really emblematic of this new generation of Democrats who are coming in and challenging, essentially saying, thank you to the old guard, but you guys have kind of messed shit up. And some of you are taking money from some pretty suspect places. And it's time for some new leadership. And I think Eric makes a good case, and it's exciting for us always to talk to somebody in California.
Well, without further ado, here is our conversation with Eric Jones. Eric Jones, welcome to Political Playlist Happy Hour. Good to be with you here.
Thanks, guys. Nice to spend this sunny California morning on a podcast.
Is it nice weather up there in NorCal? I know we were just talking about how talking about the weather is so stupid, but I am curious.
Oh no, it's hot. I was up in Newport yesterday and it was getting to the 90s. I live in town of Napa and it's always nice. Honestly, I know.
What a dream.
Because even when it's hot by like 6 p.m., it's dropping. But yeah, it's great. It's awesome.
I feel like living like right outside of Napa is sort of just like living right outside of Napa and running for Congress to like actually do something important in the world just feels like the best like division of life that I can imagine. You're fulfilled, but you also live in this incredibly idyllic place.
Yeah.
I wish I got to be more idyllic, put it that way.
Yeah.
Yes,
sure,
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely spot on.
It's a busy time right now. California voting's already underway. We're leading up to Election Day and the primary, so we're sure that you are very, very busy, and we are very excited to talk to you about your district and your policies and everything going into your race. So, Michael, you wanna dive in?
I think a great place to start is your background, which is in venture capital, and you founded a nonprofit, the American Dream Institute. Can you first talk about what the American Dream Institute is, how you started this, how it's going? What is the work that you guys do there?
Sure. So, look, I'm a believer in the American dream. I'm a believer because I feel that I've lived it, and I know that this is the only country on earth where I can be who I am. I also believe that the American dream is this kind of binding idea that we have in our country that we need, and we need it because people came to America at all different times by all sorts of means for all different reasons. But now there's this unifying project that we have together, which is liberty, freedom, and how to create the most amount of economic opportunity for the most amount of people. And there's also an embedded promise here that you leave the world better than you found it. I think that's always been part of the American promise, the American dream, is we're going to allow the next generation to have what we had and hopefully more. And all of this is important because we're not an ethnic state, right? Like, we're a multiracial, multicultural democracy. We're not like, the Dutch are Dutch and the Danes are Danes. And most countries have thousands of years of cultural history that bind them together. We kind of just have this project. And otherwise, we all look different. We all have different views, but we all invest in the same idea. So, not to deviate, but that's why it's so important, because when that stuff starts to kind of untether, we look around and we're like, wait, we're actually just not that similar. And this is what brings us together. So with that, the American Dream Institute was an idea that I had when I probably didn't have enough courage to do this, make impact directly. And what I principally wanted to do was change the conversation online by creating more hope and positivity, and also draw contrast to a lot of the extremism we see. And importantly, we wanted to be culture first. We wanted to find cultural voices that we thought spoke to people in a modern way, that were values aligned, that hadn't yet activated their own free speech, and become their political shepherds, show them data, kind of guide them towards being authentically political in their own way, but not 100% of the time. Maybe 5% of the time, which, if you look at the right, they've done very successfully, right? And we don't want to pay people to say anything. We want to engage and maybe do a little editorializing, collect a lot of data, which is principally what we do, and then feed it back and say, hey, like, you may not see yourself this way, but you're actually an environmentalist. Like, you've talked a lot about your priorities, and they seem to align with a Medicare for all platform, right? And that then becomes authentic as you hear them then talk about it. And again, like, it's not like the Twitter post or X, where you see 1,000 people say the same thing, right? Like, clearly this is manufactured. We're trying to get away from that as we get towards 2020. So it's voices. It's a lot of data collection on the back end. We collect data from our creators, almost like a data co-op. We do a lot of old-fashioned research and polling as well. So we now have a 10,000 strong sample between focus groups and polling of people in America under 45, not likely voters, not primary Democratic voters, just people under 45. And that is revealing and helps inform a lot of the conversations that we have.
Well, you're on the right podcast.
Yeah, we cover people under 45. So thank you for being here.
That was not meant to be a line.
No, we'll
sorry, Gen X.
We have our clip. It's perfect.
I think Gen X now is probably like 50.
Okay.
No, maybe 45 is still Gen X.
Like, yes, elder millennial is kind of the
yeah. Yes, I would say we go up to elder millennials. You mentioned data collection, which I think is so interesting, because when as someone who is obviously very invested in politics, but not sort of working in it, in the machine of it, I think when I look at the left and the right, it does feel like the right has done such a better job historically of finding data, using data, and then executing on that in a way that is effective for messaging and getting votes. And, I have to imagine some of that does come from your finance background and just being a data-driven and analytic person. And it makes me think of, like, those are skills that often are underrepresented, I think, in Congress. We see a lot of lawyers. We see a lot of, people who have worked their way up through government. So what do you think that idea of being someone who is numbers focused, someone who has a background in that kind of analysis, is an important skill and maybe makes you stand out from your opponent right now, going into hopefully a seat in Congress?
So let me kind of take what you said and blow it out for everyone who's not just my background, right? Our founding fathers. I'm not a constitutionalist, but I love the Constitution. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Yeah.
And it's really
As
short.
we should.
It's really short, and everyone should read it. It's like, I have a little book of it. So our founding fathers, they believed in citizen legislators. And yes, it was a different time, but there was an underlying thesis, right? That you could be a farmer, a shipbuilder, a teacher, a merchant, right? And a postmaster, and you would bring that experience to government for a period of time and then go home. And your identity was like legislator / dad / ship guy, you know, like that was the idea. And you would actually then sit on committees that related to that. And they actually wrote and said, do not allow for an enfranchised political class because that will lead to a king. Like power leads to power, and power accumulates on top of power. And wow, does that feel relevant today? So yes, to me, I'm less of, I'd say, finance and more business building in terms of like my, I hate to use the word superpower, but that's like, what I found good at is finding people with great ideas and then being like the biggest water boy ever and just like carrying as much water, bringing people around that, motivating, kind of taking something that's kind of messy and like putting it, like making it framing it and then helping people build things and grow things. That's really been my strength. Now, that's a change-oriented perspective on like, I believe every day I can do something to make an impact. And maybe that alone is probably the biggest difference between me and what most legislators in our party are, which are lawyers. And there are a lot of activists too, who do believe in change. And they're taking their activism often from what I would call a social and legal perspective versus a system of change, a theory of change. The right takes a system and seeks to change it and make it different and often break it, right? We have to do the same, and we have to build and create and also do some reform along the edges. So yes, I'm analytical. Yes, I know how to look at a budget. Whew, don't look at the US budget. It's a little tough.
I was going to say the budget maybe could use some of those eyes.
Budget would be a fun conversation. But the point is like build things, right? Like I believe in Medicare for all. Actually, I'll go further and say Medicare today is insufficient. It doesn't cover any form of in-home care. It doesn't cover dental, vision, or hearing aids, which are like critical preventatively, but also for quality of life. It doesn't cover some pretty basic prescription generic drugs. So we have to change the system. We have to adapt our healthcare system to an aging population. That's a kind of change-oriented mindset. A lot of the work I did was in healthcare. So that's probably the difference is like I have practical ideas that I want to implement that have never been told to me by a lobbyist. There's no corporate or special interest strings attached to those ideas. They're simply like good ideas that I believe can move our healthcare system forward. And that's necessary in this moment.
That's so cool. The idea, I just wanted to like, this isn't a question, but I think bringing up that idea of a citizen legislator, and it just makes me think of like, oh yeah, we talk on here all the time, like bringing your life experience is the key, I think, to a good politician. But I do feel like so many people leave that at the door when they enter politics because you're kind of consumed by this world. So I think that's an important element.
And they become a party, right?
Right.
Versus like the person that they were before.
Right, totally.
Yeah.
Well, and so like bringing that venture capital and business experience to Washington, I feel like, right now there's sort of a bad stigma of venture capital. It kind of gets roped in with tech. It feels like there's a nefarious label being put on that right now. And then I think when you bring in this whole corporate interest element to it, it gives people the ick. So I'm curious, like, how do you, I suspect I know where you stand on trying to eliminate corporate interest in politics, but, how do you think you and your experience can sort of work to start to change that? I know it's certainly not going to change overnight. It's going to be turning around a cruise ship. But I'm curious how you kind of approach that.
Yeah. So great question. I don't really see myself as a venture capitalist. I definitely don't see myself as a capitalist. I believe capitalism is a system that, we have a sort of capitalist system that our democracy has chosen. Although I will say today it feels very much like capitalism is choosing a cronyist version of democracy that we're all living. And we need to invert that, right? Like our political system is democracy. I know it's more than that, but simply democracy. We then choose an economic system, and we can continue to choose one going forward. Today, it's the other way around. The business community and like large corporations and special interests are choosing our democratic system. And I think we all need to like invert that thinking and get back to being agents of our own democracy, right? So how can we do that? We are not in the short term going to change the Supreme Court. I know everyone wants to, but it's gonna be really challenging. But there are three things we can do. Right now in California, there's a bill called AB 1984. It's Chris Rogers is sponsored it, and it's very Orwellian in title. But what it would do is prohibit all corporations and special interests from participating in California politics if you're a California company. And that's within our capability as California. We can dictate our corporate charter. 2, the DNC has already said that in presidential primaries, no special interest money will be allowed. So they could go all the way down the line and say for any race in which there are 2 Democrats, no special interest money. And we lobby the DNC. They're our body. They're our entity, right? And then at the local level, you can elect people who reject corporate money and reject special interest money, which is a core pillar of my campaign promise. I don't own any public stocks. I won't trade stocks. I will take no special interest money. Like, I want to be a legislator for this community in this country. That triangle of stuff is actually really powerful. And states across the US have already started passing their own bills in the state level that would prohibit corporate money. So we're on the trend. And to me, like, this is the underlying rotten of all the rottenness, right? Like, this is from with everything, like all the badness like comes. Because at the end of every, when I have a question in America, you're like, wait, why is this thing the way it is? I thought everyone didn't like this thing. You look at environmental concerns, there's usually some oil and gas lobby at the end of it. The point I'm making, and I haven't got to pharma and healthcare, the point I'm making simply is like, we can affect our political change via impacting money in politics. And that's a core part of what I believe has nothing to do with my business career. Now I'll say, like, in my business career, I've observed some of the ick. I've observed the way you have to hire lawyers to like manipulate the tax code, which we didn't. But the point is, you see it. It's like part of your corporate strategy. That's silly. That's not pro-business. Like, lawyers to manipulate tax code is not pro-business. That's anti-business, right? That's anti-growth. It's system manipulation. And that is enabled by corporate and special interests investing in politicians. So if there's one promise that we should all make and folks running for office, it's reject the money. Just reject it.
Right.
Like, raise money from individuals. Do it the way it was meant to be. I mean, hopefully we get to a place where we have 12-week public elections. But before that, let's start.
Can you imagine?
And raising money from actual people who buy into the mission.
Yeah. It's so interesting because I feel like when Trump ran the first time, so much of the support around him was, oh, well, we need someone who understands business, because really, the sort of talking about the budget, the country kind of becoming this business, as you've sort of alluded to, which I love, the idea of capitalism now is kind of controlling democracy instead of vice versa. And I think that there's a hopefully not naive, but more kind of altruistic version of that, which is like, oh, but if we have people who do understand the mechanisms of creating a successful business, but as you said, have seen the ick and want the ick to be gone, then maybe there's a place for people to come in and say, yes, this is a business, but this isn't a business that should be run with the ick,
Totally. And also, look, like, we can be a pro-reform. The Democratic Party, we can't always just take the other side. Actually, Trump often highlights the problems pretty well.
Right.
And he can communicate those problems pretty well at a mass market level. It's just that in between the problem and solutions, a whole lot of greed and hate and other bad stuff, right, that he drives. So we can do the same. We can say, yeah, you're right. Like, government spending is a problem. Like, California's budget has exploded in the past 8 years. And have our services gotten better? Have our public schools gotten better? Care access improved? Our budget's gone up 80%. So to me, it's like we can actually just ask some questions, right? Like, we can actually highlight that and then offer to fix it. You can only fix something if you're an outsider. That's almost like, you cannot expect the machine to fix the machine. Like, particularly when the machine has been operating a certain way for so long. So I think first and foremost, Trump was an outsider. And that was the right answer to that moment. Obama was also an outsider. right? I mean, you look at a lot of these great change makers, they are outsiders to the system, which then learn to implement change within it, but they start from a position of independence. Unfortunately, we got Trump. But he was the answer to that moment, just a really poor answer.
Totally.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about something that I feel like we've been talking about on this podcast like ad nauseum lately, but we're a little obsessed with it, and that's AI. And I know that that's like a very broad term and encompasses a lot. But I want to ask you sort of more specifically, I think Congress has a moment before them right now where they're going to have to figure out how they regulate AI and what if any regulation they're putting in place to really make sure that this is a beneficial ad to our generation and future generations and not the doomsday that I think a lot of people fear. So I'm curious, can you talk a little bit about how you view AI regulation? Do you feel that this is a major issue that not enough people are talking about? Where do you fall on this?
It's a massive issue, massive issue. And again, like it starts with education. When you don't have legislators who are themselves educated on the issue, they are fully susceptible to any lobby. You're just following the money. There's no like a priori view of how things should be. Like when you can't tell the difference between a GPU and a hamburger, to then be expected to like legislate on this extremely complicated thing is unfathomable, right? So start with like get people who kind of like at least know like the data center versus the McDonald's, right? And that's one. Now, two, my personal perspective is like there are three things: safety first and foremost, and to me, we start with the right wedge, which is kids. If you want to get the left and right to agree on something, genuinely start with kids. And if we can agree on a safety mandate and platform for kids, particularly use of AI in schools, then actually, maybe this is also good for adults.
Right.
And look, this is on our website. Like I support a social media ban for 16 and under. I'd probably even go a bit higher. I would go with the same with AI, particularly as it relates to classrooms. So now we can get into all the weirdness of like how it would actually create safety and talk about safety. Let's go. Yes to safety, yes for kids. Second is the environmental impact, which is massive, right? And to me, three things. All incremental data center capacity has to be with its own power generation. It can't be pulled from the consumer grid. It has to be with green, clean, like the highest standard of renewable energy generation. So generate your own energy, do it at the greenest capacity possible. And when it comes to water, we've seen that the very best data centers use about 2 households worth of water a year. That's it.
Wow.
The very worst are basically like mega polluters and run off into rivers, right? So we have a capability to be great. So like, let's mandate great. And third, we have to start taxing AI now. We can't have tech 3.0 where these companies got to $1 trillion of $1 trillion valuations and never paid tax. Like that's not American. That's not capitalism working. So to me, I think we should tie taxation to some sort of workload metric. You do on inference workloads, you maybe even tie it back to some environmental impact. There's ways to do this intelligently. And you take that money and you invest it in job training and educational pathways and free college in certain areas that we know we need in our country and that are also AI, I guess, resistant, so to speak, safe, like jobs are the future that we do need. So all of that, it's safety, it's the environmental impact, and then it's let's tax it now. And we're not going to cripple the industry. We're not talking like onerous taxation, but pennies can move the needle on trillions of dollars, right? Like very, very small percentages can be hugely impactful.
Because I feel like that's always the pushback.
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say that's always the pushback. It's like, oh, you can't stifle innovation. We've got to compete. We've got to, give the rocket the fuel that it needs. And I feel like what you're saying with taxation, it gets a bad rap from that standpoint, that it becomes viewed and skewed as, oh, this is stifling innovation. This is in the way.
There's always going to be an argument that tax is bad.
Yeah.
Now, let me start by saying that I think that broadly in America, the working class, the middle class, the upper middle class, really like I would say 90% of America bears a really heavy tax burden.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not talking percentages. I'm talking the burden they bear versus what they've borne historically versus what their life costs today. I'm not making like value judgments. I'm just saying like,
Yeah.
if you're in those buckets, you pay a lot of tax, which makes your life hard. Like paying less tax would actually be really helpful to you. If you're making $1 million a year, paying less tax, like, yeah, whether it's fair or not, what doesn't really matter to your quality of life. Making 100K, paying 10 to 20K less in tax makes a huge difference, right?
Right.
Now let's step back and think about corporations. In a world where the government took 100% of every dollar of profit, 100% tax, what would corporations do? They wouldn't make any money. They would say, why would I give the government any excess profit? I will simply pay my people more, invest in more factories, like, I don't know, go start some new novel project, right? That would be at 100% tax. It would be a pro-innovation, pro-growth mandate in a very strange way. The government would collect no revenue because anyone intelligent would spend all their money.
Interesting.
Now let's go to the other spectrum. 0% tax. Your entire incentive shifts to very short-term profit taking, buying back stock, playing with margins, doing all the tricks because there's a high value of money today. And the reality is taxes will probably go up from zero.
Right.
They can go up. So you're going to take advantage of today's current perceived tax break. That is why 0% taxes are bad. They're anti-capitalist. They're bad for business. They're bad for growth. They put you in this very short-termist mindset, which when we think about competing in AI in the future, like there has to be some reinvestment cost. There has to be some way to say, we can't just throw $10 trillion at the problem without some sort of calibration of maybe thinking that this money could be invested better in other parts of the economy. Parts of the economy that could help AI. Maybe what we're doing is actually building more engineers that are actually engineers of the future, not engineers whose jobs are currently being replaced. Right? Like it can always be a good thing. And I hate this like, oh, all the companies are going to run away or like taxes. Like, no, like there's smart taxation. And we've seen in our history as a country, and we can do that with AI. That was my ramble. I'm sorry about
No,
the
it's, I mean, it's so
great.
interesting because here's my question for you. Just since you're running for Congress, when you look at what is happening now, we just talked about this on our previous episode this week of like, it feels like there's this binary decision being put before politicians, which is either you have to regulate and stifle the innovation or you have to let the innovation go. And we sacrifice everything that you said, which is the safety, the environmental impact. So when you look at what's happening in Congress right now and you imagine yourself there in your manifestation for next year, is there something that is already happening that maybe we are unaware of that you would sign on to? Is there policy that you have thought about? I mean, this taxation thing I think is really interesting and intricate and important. Like what is day one? What is the thing when it comes to AI that you want to say, hey, I know about this stuff and I want to try to be a part of this conversation?
So I'll start with my core platform has nothing to do with AI, right? Yeah. I'm running on Medicare expansion for senior care, the things I talked about, vision, dental, hearing aids, and free prescription generic drugs. I'm running on a universal childcare policy, and I'm running on a tax break for the working and middle class.
I would almost argue, though, that like AI will contribute to all of those things, right? Okay.
Yeah.
1,000%. I'm not the AI guy. However, we should have a bunch of AI guys and gals who know enough to be part of this conversation that we're having.
Yeah.
Right? Like you guys are way more part of this conversation than an 85-year-old legislator can.
Right.
And that's not ageist, it's reality.
Yeah.
So the problem right now is the Democratic Party is, I find, just chases its own tail when it comes to polling.
Yeah.
And we manifest our own realities that are actually not true. Republicans are pro-AI, or the Republican Party is. They are not regulating. They are letting AI tech run amok. And then we create the fear mantra. And we become this party of anti-AI, anti-growth, anti-future. Oh, we can't have that here, not in my backyard, right? Despite the fact that in many red states, you're seeing communities being lifted up when AI is done in the right, when data centers are built in the right environmentally friendly way with coordination of a town, they can quadruple tax revenues for some of these communities, keep schools open, right? So point being, it can't be yes or no. it has to be Democrats who say this is a reality. The single biggest priority is safety. Like, this is our Manhattan Project. This is our 1969 going to the moon, right? The Apollo missions. It has to be. It is whether we like it or not, countries around the world will be competing on this basis, and we cannot be, as a country, vulnerable to a foreign government. So there has to be some investment in reality. We'll start there. But clearly it has to be safety first. Clearly it has to be environment first. And once you start there, you have a productive conversation. But I think today there is a handful of Democrats that can even have that conversation. Now, I'm hopeful that we'll see the biggest class of freshman Democrats in Congress ever, based on retirements and, unfortunately, deaths. So, and a little bit of competition versus incumbents. So we're going to have a bunch of folks who get this. And we can't just be the anti-AI party. We have to be the AI safety, AI job creation party, and let the Republicans argue for something that, frankly, is dangerous. And let's then show let's show how we can actually give a positive path to the future, not a negative one, and actually keep people safe.
So let me give you an opportunity then to tie that to what seems to be at the crux of your campaign, which is these issues of affordability, healthcare, and things like that. Because I think it really is all connected. And I think that we as the public are starting to see that there are these large companies that are affecting the affordability of the country, and that affordability is going to be further and further, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, expanded. The crisis will be expanded by AI. So just talk a little bit about how that then relates to the things that you are really pushing in your community.
Yeah. So let's talk about healthcare, because healthcare is 2.5 trillion of our $7 trillion budget. The U.S. budget, federal budget. States, it's equally impactful at the state level. It's really big. Also, everyone deals with healthcare, whether for themselves, their kids, their parents. It's inevitable. And we cannot, it's also about 24% of GDP. I believe that healthcare is a human right, but we cannot get there if we just snapped our fingers and said, everyone have the system we have today. A, it'd be too expensive. And B, it'd be insufficient, to the point I talked about. Like, we're aging in this country. We're going to have so many people in our country in their 80s and 90s that are still healthy, that have no real access to care under standard Medicare. Can't get a nurse in your home. Can't get any sort of alternative care setting. If you need to be seen once a week, you may have to go to the hospital as your only mechanism for that to occur. And that's extremely expensive, right? Particularly in rural parts of America. So broadly put, like, we do not have our system built for the future, and we need to. We can do a lot of things that save money and actually make us healthier that cost money up front. But industry fights back, right? So everyone in America could have free prescription generic drugs for the cost of 15 to 20 days of war in Iran.
Wow.
Think about that.
Yeah.
15 to 20 days. And if you gave everyone free diabetes medication, how much money you'd save?
Right.
Because you know how much cost there is from seniors who go to ERs late at night because they missed taking their insulin for 2 days. Like, it's simple. Now, who prevents that? Well, the pharma industry, right? We can go through hearing aids, which we now know the link between hearing loss and early onset dementia and Parkinson's. Giving every senior a free hearing aid would dramatically lower our healthcare costs. So why don't we do it? Dental care and heart disease. We now know the significant link between the two. And again, we don't provide dental care for seniors. So
Michael's a big fan of dental care. I just wanted to throw that in. Michael loves the fancy dental care.
I mean, my dentist is becoming like my, like a therapist at this point.
Yeah, me too.
But like, I didn't know I had this problem, and now you're fixing it. It's kind of one of these weird things.
Right.
Sorry to interrupt. I just had to add that.
And mentioning these things that we don't do because corporate interests on the other side. Yet we all pay for it.
Right.
And when it comes to healthcare, it's more than just money. It's a human being. So let's definitely start there, right? Attack the insurance industry, attack the pharma industry. right? Attack the hospital lobby. By the way, those groups are all spending against me in my race because I'm talking like this, because they are not good for our country. Innovation is good for our country, and there are amazing innovators in healthcare, and there are amazing doctors and nurses and surgeons and providers. But the system, the execs, the admin, like the insurance companies, which deny claims not based on whether or not the claims are fraudulent, but whether or not they use AI to determine whether or not you're going to actually have a claim. Like that is inhumane and probably illegal. Actually. So to me, like I talk a lot about healthcare because that's my experience. That's my lived experience. Like my father was addicted to opioids growing up, was just fed drugs by the pharma industry as a veteran who lived in a small town and had poor healthcare access. Like I saw my son had a $1.6 million hospital bill when he was born.
Wow.
Oh my God. Is he okay?
We worked down. Yeah, he's a happy health. It took a bit, but he's super healthy. And thanks to UCSF. I say all these things because like that $1.6 million bill, we worked it down. But my wife has a master's degree. Like I've got a lot of agency and can get pretty, I'm like a dog with a bone. So it came to about $70,000 at the end of it all.
Yeah.
But for so many families, that would have been crippling.
Totally.
And this is the crazy part, right? Like in America, every single person is one medical diagnosis away from tragedy.
Yeah.
And that's unacceptable. And again, it's because of the corporate interest in our system. Doctors and nurses don't want that. So I'm ranting, guys. I apologize.
No, it's good. I mean, it's true.
It's great.
I think the ickiness, I think to me, the two big areas where everyone sees the ick when it comes to special interest are war and healthcare.
Yeah.
When Donald Trump's like, oh, yeah, we went to Venezuela because you poke your finger in this oil in the ground, right? Like when you hear that and then you see like Chevron stock go up and Lockheed Martin stock go up, right? And you're like, oh, okay. Like this is mask off territory.
Yeah. Right.
Healthcare.
Yeah.
Why are we doing this terrible thing? It ain't because a doctor or nurse said to do it.
Right. And if you talk to the doctors and nurses, they're like, it ain't working either.
Right.
They want to take care of people.
Totally. Yeah. Well, we could talk about this forever. I actually, like a year ago, I had a claim denied, and it was the first time that had ever happened. And it was so stressful. And to your point about your son, like I had the time to call the people, like I was able to deal with it. And I just remember thinking, oh my God, like it was a simple thing. And like, it would, but if I had to A, pay it, that would have been very stressful. And B, if I hadn't had the time to keep calling back and saying, hey, is this going through yet? Talking to all the different entities, like I would have been screwed. And even if not, in financial ruin, I would have been like emotionally distressed by it all. And so I think it's like, as I'm sure you see on the campaign trail, it's just the most relatable thing for people, no matter how much money you have, no matter, what time you don't have. And so I think that obviously is resonating with people around the country. So
it's
healthcare.
And to your point, no, absolutely. I mean, what you just said, everyone can relate to.
Yeah.
And if maybe you don't speak English well,
right?
Like maybe you're hard of hearing and the phone is really tough for you.
Right.
I mean, maybe you only check the mail every once in a while because accessibility is an issue and you don't even see the bill. Right. Like, and I'm not even talking about maybe you just don't have the time because a mom working 3 jobs to spend 10 hours on the phone. Right.
Yeah.
And all of these things lead to medical bankruptcy.
Right. Well,
sorry. Like
that's okay. I wanted to say the word, I want to end the conversation on maybe lighter topic, which is one of my favorites, which is wine. And
yes, I can confirm Anna loves wine.
And, you're, as you mentioned before, you live in the beautiful wine country of Northern California. You're running to represent, importantly, this, very substantial agricultural industry in our state. And I just wanted to ask a question that, like, on this issue and what you're hearing from people who work in this business in all capacities, whether it's people owning vineyards, working at vineyards, people just living in the towns, depending on the economy of those vineyards. How does your campaign and your promise to be a loyal member of Congress for these people, what are you telling them about the state of agriculture in America and specifically in your region?
So my district is not just wine. It's now, particularly with Prop 50, it's really grown. It's basically a brand new district. And by value, well, probably by tonnage at least, we're looking at rice, pistachio, almond, walnut.
Also love nuts. Great.
Love the nuts, a lot of nuts. A lot of orchards, right?
Amazing.
But
we've got a whole board go. We have a fruit nut wine situation going. Yeah.
So broadly, ag is really important to this district, right? Which is multiple layers, right? We can start with farm workers and all the issues that affect cost of living that we talked about, right? To me, we do not do enough to protect and help California farmers. We talk about this proud agricultural heritage, and yet we've got a $350 billion budget, and we spend something like $500 million on helping local farmers and small farms.
Wow.
Europe, by contrast, spends about $50 billion. $500 million, $50 billion. Europe's a little bigger, but still, right? Scale. We have a lot of money in California. So to me, the way you help ag today is you do two good things at once. Small farms need access to capital. The average farm in this district is 120 acres. Small. Helping them become regenerative and sustainable would be huge. But that's about a $75,000 to $100,000 upfront process. That's 2 years of cover cropping. That's changing out your fertilizer, right? That's changing out your pesticides. And then it's about 20 grand a year ongoing. If I'm California, I'm paying for that, or at least giving a loan that's extinguishable upon certain criteria being met, because by doing that, you can turn a farm from a CO2 emitter into a CO2 capturer, depending on the crop. That's like a huge environmental positive. It helps sustain the small family farm, not the mega farm, which is looking for all these folks to go bankrupt so they can buy them up. Like that's what's happening right now. So to me, that's how you take a urgency of a crisis, you invest and you make something good out of it. On top of that, water is a huge issue. And in this district, there's 5 different water projects, and water ain't that sexy, but we've got like $8 billion worth of stalled water infrastructure. And water infrastructure is really important. It helps you replenish groundwater, the water table. It helps you efficiently get water where it's needed. And it can, when done appropriately, prevent environmental disaster. It can also have environmental impact, which has to be tempered. But when we talk about Sites Reservoir or the Delta Project or Shasta or Potter or Colgate, those are 5 projects just in this district. Value about $8 billion. Many of them have been on hold for 20 years. Wow. So it used to be about $2 billion of cost. And we have to invest. So those are the 2 things, like help farmers, just help them in general. We don't do enough to help.
Yeah.
And if you're going to help, I'd argue, let's kind of tie a incentive that's positive around sustainability. And on top of that, let's actually invest in water, because we're really, really far behind.
Yeah.
Well, Eric, thank you so much for joining us today. I know you've got a campaign to run, so we're going to let you go. But this was a great conversation. Yeah. I hope you come back, and good luck in your primary.
Can I ask you guys a question?
Of course.
Yes.
You could snap your fingers, each of you.
Yeah.
What is one political change you'd love to see in our world? And you can't say get rid of Donald Trump.
Term limits.
Term limits. Okay. Yeah, all right. Yep.
Actually, can I say 2? Term limits and ranked choice voting.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, I would go with ranked choice voting. And I think more and more I'm coming around to the idea of Medicare for all who want it.
I like that.
Yeah, Mr. Pete Buttigieg.
Yeah.
Pete Buttigieg circa 2020.
I've been listening to the Pete
late
podcast.
On that one. I think you're 6
As in, like,
years too
Medicare
late.
for all with fixes, like, like I get the all who want it.
I will say I think that what you said about the idea of like Medicare for all is great. hard to just like do all at once. But also I think this idea of like, we do also have to understand that Medicare is not a perfect system. And so the evolution of that system being something that hopefully people like you and all these people that we've been talking to can kind of get into Congress, and people who have been elected and are fighting for it, but to get into Congress and start to think about what are these innovative systems that everyone seems to be craving, but no one seems to be proposing. So
can I actually add,
please? Yeah.
Let me add to my comment, and I'll maybe give you an idea as it relates to Medicare for all, et cetera. I think we need to create a GI Bill type of thing for nurses and doctors to incentivize, the government will pay for nurses and doctors to go to medical school to then work in these Medicare for all type systems. And you take out of the equation the idea of, oh, well, I'm saddled with all this debt and it's so long and then I can't afford, I then have to go into private practice and become a dermatologist or whatever to afford medical school.
It's very Scandinavian of you, Michael.
The problem that we should start with.
Great idea. And I like that you caveated it, which is we're not just tracking all talented people towards specialty and saying that end all be all. Like we're reinvigorating the idea of care providers and the family doctor and actually managing someone's care as a calling, right? Which a lot of doctors want to do. But then you get to that point where you're like, wait, I have how much medical debt?
Right. You're like, oh my God, I couldn't possibly.
Orthodontist it is.
And on top of that, we kind of even restrict the number of residency spots. We create this false kind of, this false,
if you have to go to these medical schools in order to actually have, any worth as a doctor, whatever, all that stuff becomes
totally
toxic.
Right. Open the box up. Yeah. Constrain folks who want to take care of people.
I know.
We should allow people to do that. It's like a calling.
When you put it that way, it's so depressing.
Why would you particularly these brilliant people in school who just want to take care of people? It's like, we should probably make that kind of easy for them, right? Like
totally.
Like, not easy to be a doctor, but like if they've already done the hard work, like let them be a doctor.
Right. And you have the desire for it. Totally. Oh my God. Well, what would be your snap your fingers?
Eliminate Citizens United. That's like the hardest one. But
you know what? You said snap your fingers, so apparently
that's why
your pie. It's a pie in the sky.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and good luck. You have a couple more weeks in this primary, and we hope to see you again soon. Thanks, everybody, for listening to Political Playlist Happy Hour. Make sure you're subscribed or following here, and always following us on Instagram and TikTok at Political Playlist.
And leave a comment.